Hello, and welcome to another Play Dicely recap. Today we'll be discussing episode number 37 of the Play Dicely campaign, Love Unending. The party are fresh arrivals in Nell's home of Varmhall Village, where she has just released her community members from this magical effect that she had accidentally placed upon them 2 months prior. With everyone a bit dazed and confused, Nell tries to explain to everyone what had happened, how 2 months have passed, and introduces everyone to her new friends. Once some questions are answered and things are clarified, Nell's family and community breaks off to go begin prepping for a feast that was meant to happen 2 months ago for the graduation ceremony for the Paladins of Fyra, or the Knights of Kindle. With the community quite lively in prepping for this feast, the party makes their way over to the village guest house, where Azariah is being expected by their siblings. The party gets to meet Azariah's younger, bubbly sister, Loreleth, and also their older, blunt brother, Ylfarin. The reason for their coming back to their old home was that their father, Urindale Azalea, had been in declining health for some time. In his declining state, he mentioned that he wanted to rest beneath the shade of their mother again, who was a forest dryad spirit, and so the siblings took that to mean that he wanted to come back to their original grove for his final days. Azariah gets a chance to sit in with their father and have some words, though he's not entirely present. Afterward, Azariah is curious to investigate the Life Spring, which is the spot where Azariah's mother's tree used to sit, and also currently acts as the fresh water source for Varmhall Village. The party makes their way down to the pool, and Azariah dives in, discovering that there's an unnatural darkness at the bottom. It turns out there is potential for a portal at the bottom of this pool, and it would lead to the Plane of Darkness, Darkest Heart. The party and Azariah's sister theorize as to why it's there, how long's it been there, how could it possibly be opened? Do they want to open it? But not long after this, the community is summoned by Nell's brother Finn up to the community longhouse where the feast is going to be held. And as per the customs of Varmhall, the party divvies up and goes to sit with different members of the community. Which, this was a lot of fun to witness. And Christy came up with so many NPCs that it was a fun experiment to try and dot a little bit more of them, get to actually use them. Because even if they were brief interactions, it really helped liven up the village as a whole, just to know that there are so many characters and that we've given them at least a bit of thought. So Nell and Abe go and sit with the other Knight of Kindle graduates, as well as the village elders, which include Nell's parents, Solvi and Air. Drac and Elwyn go and sit with Nell's aunt Nerwin and Dragonborn cousin Brolwyn, and Azariah and Gideon join Nell's grandparents, Ollie and Amdus, where Azariah gets to ask about the founding of Varmhall Village and what their travel to get there was like. Also, big shout out to Ryan for taking the challenge of role-playing Amdus. It was a lot of fun being able to play off of somebody else in this conversation when I had to play Nell's grandmother. And also, Amdus was oddly enough a character that Ryan has kind of dibsed as a backup character. So I'm very curious to see if this will ever happen, if Gideon needs to retire for some reason. But just know that there could be more Amdus in the future. So after the evening winds down and everyone returns to their homes, Nell's father, Air, speaks with her about her possible connection to the Wilder, as that's where he's from. As it turns out, Air had been best friends with Reynard back in the Wilder, who is also known as the Autumnal Prince, and has up to this point kind of been suspected of being Nell's wild magic patron, though through this conversation we kind of learned that that's not entirely true. Ayer explains that when he met Nell's mother, that he knew he had fallen in love, and so he knew he was going to be leaving the Wilder behind him and going to live with her. Ayer returned home to tell his parents, who were disapproving of the union, and he also told Reynard, who unfortunately was also saddened and angered that his friend would be leaving him. The last time the two friends spoke, Reynard may have unintentionally put a curse on him. He spoke out in great emotion, may your fourth child become older than your third. A bit of a world builder's note here. The magic of the Wilder is fueled by emotion, and words and promises are very important to the Fae. So due to this emotional promise that Reynard had made, the magic of the Wilder seeded itself within Aer until he had a fourth child, who ended up being Nell, and thus allowed Reynard's unintended prophecy to pass. The following morning, the party all heads on over to Nell's house to have breakfast with her and the family. Aer tells the party that they're going to need to borrow Nell for a 10-day to allow her to go through some training for a different oath, now that he's aware of her wild magic connection, an oath that might be better fitted for her. He also tells the party that he intends to go back to the Wilder to visit with Reynard, and very well could, on the way, drop off some carpenters at Smallkeep and see if the place needs fixing up and some renovations. Azariah also brings up the potential portal that lies dormant at the bottom of the life spring in the village, and also the possibility that druids may someday come back to reclaim the grove, and so to be prepared and open for potential negotiations. And then Finn remembers to tell everyone that some guy came to Varmhall recruiting for a coming rebellion, and so a couple of families left, which was why that the party had a house available to them. And apparently, some paladins of Fyra might already be enlisted to fight in this rebellion, having cited it as something to help defend those who can't really defend themselves. So the party takes in all this information and agrees to wait a 10-day to allow Nell to go through this new training. After breakfast, Nell takes the party over to Varmhall's Hall of Records, where the record keeper, Dalen Orish, excitedly interviews Azariah about their connection to the forest, their druidic heritage, and any other stories that they wanted to tell. He's just incredibly fascinated with Azariah's connection, Azariah's long-livedness, and it was a fantastic time getting to hear a bit more about the druidic stuff that he and Logan and I had developed for his character. And then Nell's 10-day of training begins. She goes through a different lesson every day with her father. These might be like philosophical lessons, or these might be actual training. We do a bit of a montage to kind of brief each day. But I do check in with the other characters to see what they're doing over this 10-day. During this time, Abe, Drac, and Gideon make their way over to Timberstead, which is just a day's travel south, with the intent to meet up with Gideon's friend Monty, whom they got in contact with in the previous session. However, when the party arrives in Timberstead, they don't find him there. So Drac reaches out to him with another sending spell, and Monty tells them that they're not letting anybody in or out of Balesville, and wonders if the party can come to him. With that, the trio stays in Timberstead for the night and then makes their way back to Varmhall Village the following day, with Gideon clearly frustrated and concerned about the whole situation. On another story occurring at the same time, Azariah and their siblings are waiting by their father's bedside as his health continues to decline, and eventually he passes away in his sleep. This ended up being a very emotional thing for me to roleplay. I am very glad Logan gave me the opportunity to roleplay this scenario with them. I think I quickly fell in love with Azariah's family, so it hit me pretty hard to immediately have one of them not be able to be explored, and so many characters die in D&D. Like, so many fights have happened and yada yada. So many big NPCs have already been dealt with in this campaign, and yet this character that I've introduced this session is now leaving. It just felt bizarre. If you had to deal with this kind of death in a campaign, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment down below. Sorry, let's get back to the recap. So the Sephrana siblings keep the funeral for their father quite small, just the three of them, and dig a grave for their father beneath the shade of a tree. The siblings all share words for their father in his memory, and Azariah marks the grave by tearing the first page out of the book he'd given them so long ago and pins it to the tree where he rests. Eventually, the 10-day passes, and Nell has a small graduation ceremony in her glade, which is this place in the forest where she'd used to go to be alone, and now opens it up to her family and friends for this occasion. The family all congratulates Nell on her new coming journey, and that includes the ancestral family, as Fyra also makes an appearance to embrace and congratulate her distant grandchild. And that was where we wrapped up the episode. The last couple of episodes had been very heavy, very roleplay centric. So, I mean, something's got to ramp up in this next episode, right? Right. Well, be sure to join us when we go live for these Play Dicely streams. You can find us over on Twitch at twitch.tv/DicelyDND. Our next session is going to be on Sunday, November the 6th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But just a heads up for anybody who's not in Canada, we're going to be putting our clocks back an hour that day for daylight savings time. So the times might get a little bit, might be a little off if you're not from Canada. So in order to make sure that you know exactly when we go live, be sure to follow us on our social media, particularly Twitter, Facebook, and also join us on our Discord, where we send out notifications when we go live, so you'll know exactly when to join us on Twitch. But that is all for this time, folks. So I hope you're staying happy, staying kind, and as always, remembering to play Dicely. Goodbye! I don't do it as good as Dallas does.